Good day once again, Christian soldiers. Welcome to another of our videos. This one will be dealing with our continuation of the studies in the book of Daniel and the experience of the children of God in Babylon. So today we would be continuing to look at how God control events in the life of men and women throughout this world. That's basically what it's all about. God control events in an effort to bring salvation, bring deliverance to his people, wherever they may be. So without further ado, let us go into a word of prayer, and then we shall get into the study of the book of Daniel and the experiences that God provided there for them in the land of Babylon. Gracious Lord, once again we are thankful for your providence in our lives. We ask, O God, that you reveal your truths unto us. As we study your word now, may we learn more and more of you. And as we learn more and more of you, may we be drawn closer to thee. In Jesus' worthy name we thank you, Lord and Father. Amen. So the last time we spoke on the book of Daniel, we stopped where the king had a dream and he forgot the dream and he wanted to know the dream and he wanted the interpretation of the dream thereof. Now, it meant therefore that even though the king had forgotten the dream, he was anxious because something in that dream was relevant for him to know, to understand. And so he would call them together. I think it happens to all of us. I personally would get a dream and I would be anxious. What does that mean? Is it something bad going to happen? Is it something good going to happen? What does it mean? What does a dream have? What does it portend? And so we want to know. And sometimes we want to know what's the interpretation of the dream. And so the same experience is what King Nebuchadnezzar was having here with this dream. But the thing is, he could not remember the dream. And he had made a decree. And the decree might have sounded a bit harsh. But at the end of the day, remember that these individuals pretended that they could interpret and they could give meaning and they can do a lot of great things. That they commune directly with God, or in their case, the gods. So again, what we are going to look at in this whole thing here, that we see the providence of God. If you take the time to analyze it carefully, you will see that God had orchestrated things in such a way that he will reveal the true and the living God, and that he will reveal the impostors, those who pretended to know the truth, who pretended to know at all, they would be revealed. Okay? So while the king threatened death and destruction to the impostors and their families and their homes, and it might seem harsh, because apparently innocent people would have passed in this. Daniel and his friends would have passed in it as well, because once those guys fail, and that's the thing about life, they made decisions that were, why should Daniel have to die because these imposters could not interpret his dream or couldn't recall his dream and interpret the dream? Okay? So, at the end of the day, but we see the hand of God in it. And so we start with verse 12. Let us start back with verse 12, which will probably bring in some of what we did the last time. And then we move on to up to verse 18, perhaps. We can look at verse 18. If it gets better than that, well, then we go on. Now, for this cause, because the impostors could not reveal to the king what was his dream and the interpretation, and the impostors rightfully said that is only God can do that. All right? So the king But you see, the king had a high expectation of these men because these men power themselves as being able to do what the king is requiring now. It's sad to say, the truth is being revealed. Remember, the truth will always be revealed. You will be living your life wherever you are at this time, and you believe that you have the truth. But if you don't, the truth will be revealed to you. The issue is, are you going to accept the truth when it is revealed? So, for this cause, the king was angry and very furious and commanded to destroy the wise men of Babylon. Now, let's face it. If, of course, you are supposed to provide to me a particular service, and you are telling me that you are unable to provide that service, well then, I might as well get rid of you. You don't serve any useful purpose to me any longer. And that was the issue here. Right? Verse 13 of chapter 2 in the book of Daniel, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. So they were accounted as wise men, but they were not called before the king to give the dream and the interpretation of the dream. And sad to say, where I think the king might be wrong is in saying that because the guys in front of you failed to give you what you required, that all the others, in a sense, will be destroyed. In that, if you raise that as an issue, I may be agree that Nebuchadnezzar might have lost it there. But again, we can understand why that is so. Remember, he's anxious to know this dream, and these foolers telling me they can't tell me my dream and interpret, but this dream has something in it for me. So you have to understand both sides of the story, and we'll have compassion on both sides. Okay. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom Arioch the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. So he had reached by Daniel and his companions. And Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom. Now, this is something as a Christian myself, and as Christians, we have to learn to do. We usually give answers, but not with counsel and wisdom from the Lord. And sometimes we create more problems than we solve. That's just by the way, anyhow. But sometimes you get through because of this. Because you give answer with wisdom and counsel, you may get through. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. So Daniel was like, so why are you destroying everybody? What is the haste with it? And then Arioch related the issue. The king had a dream. The king could not remember the dream. Called the wise men, the senior wise men. They could not tell him the dream and the interpretation. And he was furious with them, and therefore, as a consequence, he decided to get dispose of them. Verse 16. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. Now, Daniel is a man of God. Only men of God do these things. And I don't know if Daniel, probably when we meet him one of these days, he might say, well, why he just impulsive, I just went in there and I don't know, God just, sometimes you do things and you wonder. So Daniel, however, was able to go into the king, which, remember, the king had already passed the decree, but probably he convinced Arioch that he needed to go in and see the king. So, and perhaps because when the king referred to the previous experience, where these young men were 10 times wiser than the people of his own kingdom, that is probably why the king considered it, because he had already passed a decree. So Daniel went in and decided of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. Now, I have looked at the commentary and they didn't pick up on this, but I'll share this with you. Daniel went into the king and said, well, great king, or however he would have addressed him, and said, I would need some time to commune with God, and I will definitely show you the dream and the interpretation of it. The only reason why the king would give Daniel time, right, is because Daniel convinced the king that he will, given time, get the dream and the interpretation for the king. He promised that. The king had nothing to lose. So obviously the king will give him time. So there is something here that Christians need to know. You see, Daniel had confidence that God is the creator, but God is also the revealer of all truths. God is the one who reveals all truths. And that is why, even though the Roman magisterium and their fellow leaders determined that they could destroy all the original manuscripts, you cannot destroy or hide the truth of God. It's a revelation. God reveals the truth. So you destroy it. And yet still, there are persons today who would not follow and listen to what you have to offer because they know it is not the truth. And they have the truth because God is the revealer of all truths. Daniel understood this. Christian soldiers, our weapons of warfare are not carnal. We're not going to beat up people and make them believe the truth and put them on rack and pull them apart and burn them on crosses. No. Our business is in wise counsel, present the truth of God, pray on it, and let God's Spirit, the power and the presence of God, work upon the hearts and the minds of men, convicting them of sin, of judgment, and of truth. In Jesus' name. That is the weapon of our warfare. So the king, being convinced that this young man, because he's very wise, he's 10 times wiser than the other people here, so obviously I'll give him a chance, decides to give him a chance. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companion. Notice here, he makes it known to his companion. And the reason why I have taken it upon myself to do this channel is because I want to make things known to my companions so that they out there can work, we can work, we can pray and support each other, and through the Spirit of God, do a finished work for him. So that his coming would not be like the unfruitful servant who said, I know you are a hard taskmaster and I hate your talent. No, 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 no. We are sharing the talent. We want profit. Because when Jesus comes, we can say, this is yours, O Lord, and this is what I made based on what you gave. He called his companions and they prayed together. This is not an I or a my thing. This is an our thing. Notice we said Christian soldiers. It's an army. It's not an army of one. It's an army of believers in Jesus Christ. And verse 18, call them together and said that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven. Notice the prayer. That they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Not a selfish prayer. We're going to ask God to reveal that secret. We're going to ask God to spare our lives in Jesus. That is what Christian soldiers have to do. Notice the weapons of the warfare here. He said, King, I will do so and so. The weapon of the warfare. And things are changing, things are happening. They're going to seek the Lord in prayer. Down to the knees they go, seeking the Lord. Now, these verses show us the providence of God. And the word providence means that God is able to work things in such a way that His will be done. Of course, using the human instrument. Remember, the enemy of our souls is also trying to work things in His will, to have things His way, to have things done according to His will. Part of this providence is one, to reveal the true God, and two, to reveal the impostors. So, part of our work as Christian soldiers, because I hear people say when they hear Christian soldiers preaching, oh, you're finding fault and you're bad talking other people and you shouldn't do that. Listen, part of the plan of the providence of God is one, to reveal the true and the living God. That is the plan of the Christian soldiers. But part of the plan in Daniel and Revelation, Daniel's time, was to reveal the impostors. So we as Christian soldiers have a responsibility to reveal impostors. Now, be aware. Notice how God did it. They were revealed without anybody calling their names or saying anything. They were revealed by their failure to accomplish certain acts or deeds. And for this to happen, we have to go down on our knees again. We have to pray and ask the Lord for these mercies and for these blessings. In the process of in God's providence accomplishing His will, some human beings may find themselves being exalted. Those who yield themselves to the service of God may find themselves being exalted. It is hoped that at no time will those who find themselves being exalted would take praise to themselves, but rather will give God all the glory. Prayer, fasting, earnestly seeking the Lord, and pleading with Him to give us a blessing. That is what they did. There is power as God's people join in prayer for mercy and prevailing power. As we join in prayer for mercy and prevailing power, we will see miracles working in our human experience. So one may ask the question, why are the Christians today so powerless? And I'm not so sure that they are powerless. There are many miracles working in our lives today. Just doing this video and putting it up, in my view, is a miracle. It's a miracle. And this video can reach, you know. So miracles are happening. I am seeing miracles taking place. Things are happening. So there are the prayer are giving us the prevailing power, and we are seeing things happening where we are praying for persons and we are seeing them restored to health. We are seeing the power of God working. I recently prayed for a friend who was very ill. Doctors doesn't know what the sickness is, and next thing I saw him, he was working again. So I think there is a prevailing power among us. As the song you say, count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. We need to open our eyes. We just don't pray and leave it at that. We need to look to see that God is fulfilling His blessings in our lives. So the issue is here: prayer works. Prayer, as one author says, moves the hand of God. Prayer moves the hand of God in a particular direction for goodness, for righteousness' sake. And notice, in that effort, we need to give God praise. We need to honor God for the things that He has done in the past, what we hope He will do in the future, and what He's doing now for us. We need to acknowledge our need for His help. Now, people don't understand that a part of praising God and acknowledging Him is to telling God our need from Him for help in our life. That is bringing honor and praise to God, acknowledging that we are helpless and that He is. What better praise you can give to God? Now, when we come to the next study, we will see that God acknowledged Daniel and his three companions. And we are going to see how God was able, in his providence, to work things out in such a way that his will can be done, his secrets can be known. Because what we will find is that the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had was a dream from God, was a secret from God of things that God had planned to do on this earth. So we will see these things when we come to our next study in the book of Daniel. May God richly bless you. And what you could do, is to go on to read it. And then, so when I come the next time, you already have an idea as to what will be taking place in the book of Daniel. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Let us pray. Loving Father in heaven, we are thankful that you are the God who reveals secrets. You are a revealer of truths. Into your hand, at this time, I commend our lives, those who are viewing. Lord, I pray that they will be inspired to study your word and to, ahead of time, see how you have worked in the lives of men, women, and children to save us and to bring us to a knowledge of you, whom to know is life eternal. I pray this in Jesus' holy name.